He looked directly at Ademo, his eyes filled with sadness. My son, you have learned much in the city, but there are things that cannot be learned from books. The land, the spirits, they are connected. If we lose that connection, we lose ourselves. The crowd was silent. The divide between the two beliefs had never been so clear. Some believed Ademo, that the drought and the fire were natural disasters that could be solved with modern solutions. Others, like Malami Haruna, believed the disasters were spiritual in nature, a punishment for abandoning the old ways. That night, the village was restless. Groups of villagers huddled together, debating who was right. I could feel the tension in the air, and I knew something was coming, something that would change everything. The next day, I found Malami Haruna at the edge of the village, sitting by the old shrine, preparing for a ritual. He had gathered the sacred items passed down through generations, the trophy charms, the bones of animals sacrificed in times of need, and the cowrie shells used to communicate with the spirits. But before he could begin, Ademo appeared, his face twisted in frustration. Father, stop this, he pleaded. This won't bring rain, it won't fix anything. The village needs solutions, not rituals. You're clinging to a past that's already gone. Malami Haruna looked at his son, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. You don't understand, Ademo. This land is not just dirt and crops. It is alive, connected to the spirits. If we don't honor them, we will lose everything. Ademo shook his head. The world is moving forward, Father, and we must move with it. If you won't let go of the past, you will drag the village down with you. Before they could continue, a sound echoed in the distance, a low rumble, like thunder. The villagers, who had gathered nearby, turned their eyes to the sky. Dark clouds were rolling in. For a moment, hope flickered in their hearts. Could it be rain? But as the clouds drew closer, the air grew colder, and the wind began to howl. It wasn't the rain they had hoped for. It was a storm, the violent storm that tore through the village, ripping roofs from huts and flooding the already cracked earth. The rain came, but it wasn't the gentle rain that would save the crops. It was a deluge, a torrent of water that swept away what little was left of the fields, turning the roads into rivers of mud. I watched as the villagers ran for cover, their faces filled with panic. The storm was like nothing we had ever seen. It was as if the spirits had come to finish what the drought had started. Malami Haruna stood at the shrine, his arms raised to the sky, chanting to the spirits, begging for mercy. But the storm did not stop. The rain poured down harder, the winds howled louder, and the village of Kofa was left in ruins. When the storm finally passed, the village was unrecognizable. The fields were gone, the roads washed away, and the people were broken. Malami Haruna's ritual had failed. The spirits, if they had been listening, had turned their backs on him. Ademo stood at the edge of the village, watching the destruction. He had won the argument, but at what cost? The village was in ruins, and the divide between the old and the new had grown into a chasm that could never be bridged. As I looked at Malami Haruna, standing alone at the ruined shrine, I realized that this was the end of an era. He was the last keeper of our traditions, and with him, the old ways would die. The village of Kofa had been changed forever, and there was no going back. The spirits had spoken, but their message was one of sorrow, not salvation, and in that silence, the heart of our village was lost. The storm that had ravaged the village of Kofa left the people shaken. The crops were gone, and the village was a shadow of its former self. But as the villagers gathered in the aftermath, something remarkable happened. Malami Haruna, weakened but still standing, approached Ademo, who stood among the younger men and women. There was no anger in his eyes, only understanding. You were right about the drought, Malami Haruna said, his voice soft but clear. But I was not wrong about the spirits. Ademo, taken aback, looked at his father with a mix of confusion and respect. What do you mean? The spirits are part of our connection to this land, to our people. Malami Haruna continued. But we must also learn to adapt. The old ways can coexist with the new. We don't have to choose one over the other. The villagers, who had been divided for so long, began to murmur in agreement. They saw that Malami Haruna was not clinging to the past out of stubbornness, but out of love for the community, and they saw in Ademo the potential for progress, without abandoning the heart of their culture. In the weeks that followed, Ademo and Malami Haruna worked together. They used Ademo's knowledge to introduce modern farming techniques and irrigation, but they also held on to the sacred rituals that honored the spirits and the ancestors. The village began to heal, and the people came together, realizing that progress and tradition didn't have to be enemies. And when the rains finally came, they came gently, nourishing the earth and bringing life back to the fields.